Hello, and thank you for joining this pre-recorded webinar. We originally, during the broadcast of this webinar, shared our webcams, and really the whole point of the broadcast was to show a very informal conversation between three panelists being moderated by a moderator, in this case myself. Unfortunately, the GoToWebinar recording kind of went by the wayside, and the cameras were not supported during the recording. So unfortunately, there is no cameras here. We've created some additional slideware to accompany the conversation. Just know the future webinars, we will have this problem figured out, and we will be able to show our smiling faces for everybody to enjoy. Thank you very much.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Maggie Caesar. I'm the Senior Customer Marketing Manager with Trimble, and we're glad to have you with us today. So today we're going to speak to a few leaders working in a variety of construction management roles on both the owner side and the contractor side about how they've been impacted given today's environment that we're working in right now, specifically how these folks are modifying some of their invoice and application for payment processes, how they're managing bidding. As we know, picking up and dropping off paper bids right now is quite a challenge given these stay-at-home and social distancing orders. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to introduce Matt Sprague and Dan Connery from our product marketing team. Matt's going to be facilitating the discussion, and Dan's going to be popping in and out, facilitating the questions. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the speakers.
Thank you very much, Maggie. And Maggie, you actually, I could not have said it any better. You've teed up and reviewed what today's topic is. So I'm not going to repeat myself there. Welcome everybody. I'm also going to steal some words from Dan last week that we are really humbled by the reaction to last week's webinar, as well as this week's registrations and the people that are attending. So thank you so much, and obviously thank you to our panelists. Nice little segue into introducing them. We have three fantastic panelists from customers of ours. First, we have Jeremy Seibert, Director of Technology from Hansel Phelps. And then we also have Matt Pearl, who is the Assistant Public Works Director at the City of Shawnee, Kansas. And we have Scott Ackerman, who's the Executive Manager for the PMO at the New Jersey Department of Transportation. So we thank them very much and welcome them to the second webinar in our series. And so you guys are here not to listen to me. I'm purely here just to ask questions and facilitate a conversation. So I'm going to just get it started. I've kind of already spoken with our panelists and said we're going to start off with kind of a level set type question. So really what we're going to begin with is just kind of going around the horn, so to speak, and asking, what's the current state, of your projects, of your active projects? Is it business usual? Are there big changes? What are you guys seeing? So I'll start with Scott from the New Jersey Department of Transportation.
So when it comes to things being as they were, that's gone out the window. A lot of things we've been still very much paper-based industry in our organization. We have a lot of products that can help us get there, but it's been a slow adoption rate. Right now, the big thing that we're making a push towards is modifying our payment vouchers in order to get invoicing done, to get people paid, to get contractors and designers paid for the work that's going on. We haven't stopped working with Department of Transportation New Jersey. We're considered essential, and we are still doing active projects out there right now. In doing such, we still need to make sure people are getting paid. So one of the things that we've had for a very long time is very antiquated paper-based system. And as we move forward, we're now kind of making an extreme sprint to make things a lot more electronic, getting the acceptance, not only the documentation to not have to be hard copy, but be digital, but also the approvals. And that's kind of been a sticky wicket, so to speak. We don't have a lot of digital signing capabilities yet. We have some that we've kind of modified within EBuilder. We're leaning on Adobe Sign to do some of the documents kind of PDF signing as a way of doing it. And we're using another product called SimplyGov, which is just automated routing. It really isn't a very fancy system, but it's better than having to try to push everything through email, because I don't know about everyone else, but we kind of have a 25 megabyte limit when we're trying to send something in our email, and try to send one set of plans and game over. Can't even send anything else. So we're trying to do what we can to try to address getting people paid, getting the work out, getting the reviews done. Our fiscal year ends soon. It ends later this summer. So we have capital projects wise, we have at least good 15 to 20 projects that we still have to get out to advertise, or in the process of being advertised right now. So this had this happened earlier in the year, when I say September, it probably wouldn't have as much of an impact towards our getting the work out. However, hitting where it is now and people having to be out of the office, it's trying. And unfortunately, we actually had one of our high-level staff members, he passed this past weekend because of coronavirus, and it was tough. I mean, he was our director for Bridge, so we're having direct impacts left and right with this. So don't know what the new normal will be. I know that sounds bad, but I'm excited because I've been one of the people leading the push towards making things much more digital and much more accessible through digital means. So this is kind of helping push, sounds bad, my agenda, but really the agenda for the department a lot forward, and making the department a lot more effective. So that's kind of a benefit of what's going on, if I can look at some type of silver lining with this. But it's difficult nowadays, just trying to get the work done, I will say.
Thanks, Scott, and very sorry to hear about the passing of your colleague. A lot of people being affected by these things, so I appreciate you sharing that. Matt from City of Shawnee, I'll shoot that same question over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Like Scott, our construction projects are essential, so we are continuing down that road. Our inspectors are still in the field, in their vehicles, following social distancing guidelines. We have some processes in place in EBuilder for electronic workflows for our inspectors as far as daily logs go. We started off 2020 kicking off a brand new financial software for our city. So that has actually helped us go more electronic with paying our contractors and our consultants. So yeah, as far as construction projects related, we're business as usual, but everything else is changing for sure. So.
Cool. Well, thank you. Jeremy, hand it over to you on this.
Yeah. Thanks. From the general contractor's perspective, for us, I wouldn't say it was a big change. It's really been more of the continued evolution towards digital. We really started beginning an kind of e-job site or digital job site journey 8-10 years ago, which largely started with just PDFing documents, construction drawings and specifications, and getting those out in the field. Over the last 5+ years, it's been really more movement towards workflow enablement and really moving digital content, not just PDFs, PDF documents, right? Really looking at it from a data perspective. So fortunately, I think we were reasonably positioned well at this point to not be tremendously impacted just from the standpoint of information flow. The thing we've seen most is that while the construction industry and our job sites, really by definition are remote workers. When you think about it, it's a small group of people, depending on the project size, of course, it's in a remote location temporarily. So in a lot of ways, that's already a remote work environment that we have to stand up networks and secure and really put an office together quickly that comes apart later. But now that everybody's working from home, as I am today, we've seen that fragmented even further. Now we're taking our construction teams and trying to adapt social distancing for our engineering office staff, and how they still communicate and collaborate. So one interesting thing we've seen just in the last 30 days since the pandemic and a lot of stay-at-home orders has taken place is a 10x increase in just video conferencing, as we're doing here today, as people are still trying to remain connected on a job site and still collaborate, even though they may not be able to be literally face-to-face, they can be virtually face-to-face. that's been interesting to see that evolution and that kind of change as what may be a new normal and really enabling that type of collaboration virtually.
Cool. Thanks to all three of you for sharing that. So I think for the attendees that are on this call, likely there is a large gamut of how much they have transitioned paper-based processes to electronic-based processes. Some maybe zero, and then others who we may be able to consider ninjas at this. But there may be some that you have implemented. So I'm going to ask the question, what type of old paper-based processes have you converted to electronic, and what had that process been like? But it's not necessarily just what have you done during this time. I would invite you to share any and all that you can, so that other people might get some other ideas. Be like, oh, I never thought about that one. That would be an interesting one to do, or if you took an interesting way of doing it. Love to hear that. So we'll stick with the same flow here. Scott?
Going first each time. All right. So you guys get the prep. Now, so the two that really over the last month that have been real standouts has been our PS&E, our plans, specs, and estimates process. That's the first one. Usually that's all of our plans, our standard specs, what type of cost estimates, our DPE goals, our SPE goals. All those was completely 100% paper driven. Even the plans are paper driven, having to require hard copy and original Mylars, all signed, wet signature. New Jersey was actually one of the last states to have PE licensing done via electronic means. It only came in about 2016. So the avenue which people are slowly starting to get to that, the design industry really has taken to it. Departments such as us and other regulatory agencies and the like haven't really fully gotten on board into being able to take advantage of that yet. However, this is kind of hurdling us much more towards doing that. So the plan, specs, and estimation, or PS&E process, it allows for the submission of from the designers to the department to then push us out towards construction advertisement. So that's one process we've really done as a quick sprint. The other one is, I mentioned before, the payment voucher. We about 3 weeks into it, and it should be released hopefully within the next 2 weeks, in which case we'll be able to, I mean, we're talking about multiple areas of the department that generally are working with each other via email or sending paper and interoffice mail to really become a digital workflow. So this has been the two real big ones to know for us.
Cool. Matt?
Yeah, couple of the biggest ones that we've done just in the past month, we have a lot of collaboration on our plan review side. So we've utilized Adobe Cloud to do some of our group reviews, so everyone can collaborate at the same time and get the comments on the plans that need to be there. So that has actually been a useful tool for us, especially on our engineering group, to get together in like a Teams meeting to talk about it, but also to look at the same set of plans and get the same comments on it at the same time. So everybody's not really duplicating work. They're all looking at the same time. Also, I mentioned our new financial software at the beginning of this year. Just in the past couple of weeks, we have gotten the ability to do the automated clearinghouse to direct deposit payments to our contractors and consultants. So that has actually sped up our payment process immensely without having to have someone go into the office and write up paper checks to send out to the contractors and consultants. So yeah, those two for sure in the past month have been definitely helpful.
Cool. Dan just popped in, so he has a question.
Yeah, it was a specific question for you, Scott, though anybody can answer, is what are you all using for the digital sending of plans and specifications?
So right now it's just submission through EBuilder. That's one of the means. That's the main mean right now. Is for that process, it's all in EBuilder. We try not to go with any other type of FTPs or things along those lines because the department really doesn't sponsor a lot of those on purpose. We have a means with doing it with EBuilder, so let's utilize that. In addition, no, that's been the main way for PS&E has been to come in through EBuilder, and then when it goes to advertising, we utilize BidX to do the advertising of it.
Anybody want to add to that?
Well, I'll chime in on that. We use similar. We have on our folder structure. We have a folder specifically dedicated to email in to EBuilder, and also they have public access with a login to access just that folder on specific projects that they're involved in.
Yeah, Matt and Dan, we use a variety of solutions. Sometimes depends on our customers on the project. Sometimes we're using the customer's EBuilder in those examples, or our project management solution. We've used Bluebeam Studio a lot on a job site in terms of sharing drawings. From a bid perspective, we tend to use Building Connected as often as we can to share bid solicitations and the documents. On certain projects where security requirements don't permit the use of a tool like Building Connected, then we have our own secure FTP site that we use in those conditions. Perhaps then also answer your question, Matt, about just some of the things we've seen. Again, while there hasn't been a tidal wave of change in the last 30 days, maybe some things to think about for those people that are, have been pushed in that journey now. Some lessons learned, if you will, things we've kind of learned over the years in starting that journey and considering throughout is, I think the first step is, and following up on that question about where we're storing documents, is just digitizing drawings and specs. I mean, probably most people are receiving them that way, and now it's just about distributing those documents throughout the project team in a digital manner. And that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest way to get started, I think, on a job in terms of digitizing your workforce. It allows you to take project information, drawings, and specs with you on a mobile device out in the field where it matters, and take all of them, not just part of them. So using tools like Bluebeam, and there's a host of Trimble solutions, and OneDrive and Dropbox and Box. I mean, there's a million solutions out there, but the point in those is they all share files. Right? Sharing files is really not difficult anymore. Just pick the solution that works best for you. That said, the one thing we've seen is with the tremendous increase in startups out of Silicon Valley that have targeted our industry, that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's great because it's driving a tremendous amount of innovation into our industry that was lacking even just a few years ago. The bad part of that is, and the tale of caution is that there's not a single silver bullet. And be careful with some of these startups. Make sure you evaluate what you're hooking up to, because acquisitions and startup failures happen all the time. So what you have today and that favorite product may not last much beyond a couple of years, or it might. So be very careful about those types of solutions you're choosing. We've also found that there's been, with all those solutions, and as our clients are starting to become very aware of digitization of their workflows, as Matt and Scott have indicated, EBuilder being one of those tools that now our clients are using project management tools, our trade contractors are using project management tools, our design teams are using project management tools, and we all are using different tools. So now, although we're efficient in our own workflows, there are still challenges the industry is working through solving, and our vendors in trying to connect all those dots. And there's no silver bullet on that yet. Some of that works. Some of it requires some homegrown integration between those products. So just be mindful of that when you're thinking about how you improve your workflow, but the impact that may cause on the rest of your stakeholders on your project in interrupting their workflows, right? And then just really try to stay focused on that next step beyond the digitization of just files, as I mentioned earlier, think about it as data. And what do you start doing with the data itself, and how you start moving information around, not just PDF documents. Now, I'll tell you, we've started to think even internally about some of our workflows just recently, and you know, I can't remember if Scott or Matt talked about just some of their paper documents, trying to figure out how we get rid of it. I mean, even the workflows like something as simple as an RFI cover sheet or a submittal cover sheet. Really, when you're moving, you know, ones and zeros around, and you have 2 digital workflows, the question needs to be asked: do I even need that anymore? Like, those are things we've used for decades and decades and decades. And we're asking ourselves those questions, and guess what? We're saying we really don't, because the solutions, the softwares now, when you make that next step from a document being digitized to the information being digitized, now you can start tracking information, and you don't need, you know, cover sheets on top of submittals and pay apps and things like that, right? So be thinking about how your workflows may change from this paper-based workflow and file cabinets to where you had to track things like that, to how software can actually track that for you and eliminate entire processes.
Dan, we see your face again, so there must be another question from.
Actually, it's frightening because it's blowing up, and I'm having a hard time keeping on top of it.
That was my world last week. Welcome.
So, yeah, I'll have a little more empathy for your job, Matt. So I'm gonna combine a bunch of questions into a group. Which one? It has to do with the move from paper to digital, and specifically was about. I'm going to add my own flavor, which is: are there still skeptics that you should be moving from paper to digital? But did our current situation help you overcome the skeptics that were there before we ran into the situation? And then one was a comment, but I'll also turn it into a question, is from UC San Diego, was about the use of DocuSign. So if the group could just talk about the use of DocuSign, is that accepted? And so talk about paper to digital, and can DocuSign be used at your organizations?
I can start, I guess.
Go for it, man.
I don't go first every time.
Scott into being the first one on.
As far as the first part of that question, when we went through implementation back in 2016, when you sit down with your implementation team, you walk through all your paper processes step by step just to document them before you even think about putting them into EBuilder as an electronic process. So in that regard, you're finding steps that you don't need to do, that you do paper, that you can cut out in your electronic process, hopefully. That streamlines things, that gets it to the next person as quick as possible. And as far as DocuSign goes, we don't really use DocuSign. We have some approvals on our workflows, and from our legal side standpoint, they have agreed that if you're a logged in user with a password and everything, your stamp of approval, aka your name and timestamp, is a good enough approval on that document to move it to the next step, that it doesn't require DocuSign. We still do paper contracts that go to our governing body for approvals, but that's the end step after everything's gone through EBuilder workflows, and we're at the final step of creating the contract booklet and getting it to the governing body to sign. So.
Yeah, Matt, we use DocuSign. We also use another product called HelloSign. There's a bunch of e-signatures out there, but I agree with Matt said. Those are still used on contracts and things like that really require a digital signature as DocuSign provides. What we've seen is more and more, to Matt's point about the login, serving as authentication and identity of that person. A lot of our workflows, that's how we're enforcing identity and knowing who made that decision on, say, a design document or a submittal review or a coordination review on the model. those logins, having those logins is a form of identity, and that's acceptable for many of our workflows, which eases that burden again. You know, when you start thinking, you know, what is the evolution towards digital versus you know, trying to squeeze a analog method into a digital world, think about how it could be different. And to the skeptics out there, still thinking that there's a driving need for paper and they're concerned about digital, I would offer, do you use a banking app for your banking now, or do you still go to teller window every time you need to cash a check? Do you order food through Grubhub or any other online ordering service? Do you use Amazon Prime to order stuff for your home? You know, do you still do your taxes on paper 1040 forms, or do you do it through H&R Block or TurboTax and e-file it? Right, when you start thinking about the personal experiences we have every single day and how digitization of our world has made our personal lives easier in those types of workflows, think about how much advantage that can bring to your business processes if you apply those same type of consumer experiences to the business.
So just a specific question, I want to make sure I layer this in. It has to do with application for payment or contracts that need to be notarized or certified. Have you noticed any movement on your ability not to have to go to print something out physically?
So Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we don't really have our contractors are full in our system, that side of our system yet. They're in our public-facing system, here, our bid portal and some of our public-facing folders, but we don't actually have them in our system for that kind of workflow yet. So we're working towards that. We have unlimited licenses now, so that is our next step. So
we don't have many contracts in our system yet. That said, kind of dovetailing off of what I was talking about before, we've been questioning what type of signatures and when we need them and what for. What we've been able to establish and hopefully roll out by the end of this year is our contracts will be utilizing the two-step verification within EBuilder. So instead of having to route around to everyone and utilize DocuSign, and not to knock DocuSign, but between all the different systems that an agency like the State Department of Transportation has, it adds up pretty quick. I'm not saying that DocuSign isn't cheap or is expensive, it's just a matter of if we don't need to purchase a system to do something, if we can utilize what we already have, then let's do that. EBuilder has that two-step verification, so if it comes to myself and I need to sign, I put in my password again, and it has been noted as acceptable towards our legal folks. That said, when it comes to the few things that do need notary, we're doing our implementation right now for local aid, which is all of the programs that give grant money towards local agencies such as municipalities and counties. They still require a resolution from the township town council or freeholders that needs to be paper. That is still very much the legal way in which it has to be done because it's statute by New Jersey, not because it's something we can't do or won't do. It's the law doesn't allow us. When it comes to other type of signatures, we've been trying to do as much, again, questioning as much as we can. Adobe sign a little bit in the makeshift right now, but I see that we're moving towards a potential that the only times we'll really need a true encrypted digital signature is going to eventually be for something like getting a PE license signature on there, in which we'd use. Jeremy, I'm glad you mentioned Bluebeam before. We love Bluebeam. It's a great tool that we utilize a lot, and I'm looking forward to us to apply those the batch PE signatures on all the pages straight through, because that's going to be a game changer in a lot of ways for us. We're just trying to get all our ducks in a row to finally get that on board. But I know the design community here in Jersey has used that extensively with utility companies and with locals and things like that. So it's a great resource to have everyone collaborate as well at the same time on plans. We use it for our plan design reviews. So it's huge gains. Just how much we're saving on printing paper alone for that is going to be massive.
Jeremy, did you have something to Dan's question?
No, I second everything Scott just said, specific maybe to the comment about DocuSign, and if you don't need to spend the cost, don't, but agree with that, but also think about it as that's just one more step in the workflow you might be able to eliminate. So you not only save hard costs in terms of licensing if you don't need the product, but you also save costs in terms of a more efficient workflow for your people. So this is where you try not to always to squeeze or replace the analog with a digital version of the analog. Really evaluate the workflow and say, not only can we help save costs, but how can we save time in just making it more efficient by eliminating a step altogether that may not be needed as our paradigms change.
Yeah, one of the big things is asking the question why. Why does this need to be signed? Why does this document need to be utilized? Just asking that question so often will get such great answers that you don't realize, well, it's because we've always done it that way. Not a good answer. Don't like that answer. Oh, it's because of state statute. Okay, then there's a legal reason why we have to sign that. I get that.
Right.
If there's one document, and if there's anyone at DOT listening, they're going to know, because my despise of this one document is well noted. It's our department action form. It's called an 8012. It is that phrase 8012 is used to encapsulate 20 to 25 different types of actions. Someone says, oh, fill out the 8012. Which one? Because it can mean anything. And what it is, at the end of the day, it's a routing slip. That's all it is. It's a routing slip that packages all the different documents together. So as we move forward, instead of, oh, it's spelled 8012. Oh, you mean the funding authorization process? Yes, we can do that. Oh, it's spelled 8012. Oh, you mean the PS&E? Okay, then we can do that. So that's a huge thing there.
I think we found Scott's trigger.
Oh,
And on that, Scott, there was a specific question for you that you mentioned an electronic PE signature software. Could you just mention what that was?
Sure. One of the things that for PE licenses, in order to actually sign, you need to have a digital certificate. There's a lot of companies out there that give you a certificate. However, Bluebeam, one of the things that we like with it is that you can apply your PE license signature and seal, and it can, with the press of a button, batch place it on all pages of a plan sheet. So say you have a 500-page plan set, instead of having to hand stamp and seal like we've actually had to do for a long time, or just seal a cover and then photocopy the rest, you can digitally just hit a button and it attaches it all there for the PE license holder. So it gives the verification of the document. It basically seals the plan, so that way you know that it has been signed by a PE license holder. So that's the one that we're going to be moving forward with, is utilizing Bluebeam for that advantage.
So I'm hearing in this kind of document signature conversation that we just had, that we're talking very insular in terms of what evolution you guys have been going through. But I'm also hearing that for a general term, the governing bodies that demand these type of signatures are they going into this scenario and now asking that question why, and why does it need to have a wet signature, and are some of those restrictions loosening during this time? Are you seeing anything like that yet?
Yep. On our end, a few. One of the things that's always been, which is kind of where we talk about the payment vouchers, it's always been hard copy. That's because the way that needs to be retained, and just the method in which we've been retaining it for a while has always been this exact way. So people are now becoming a little bit more, okay, since we kind of have to do it a little bit different, so it's been more of a catalyst. So there's been a little bit lessening of, well, we always have to have paper, but that caveat is always given. I'll say this, it's always given with but we may need the hard copy later. Like, oh, you can sign it and scan it and send it in, but we may need the hard copy later. And it's justifiable. I mean, we don't know what's going to look like in 6 months when we have to do real auditing of things, or when we have to go back and look at our past work. But the reality is, I think it's a progression. It's definitely a progression.
Cool. All right. So we'll kind of shift a little bit here. So we have several customers who have started to implement our bidding module as they no longer share bid documents physically. So are you guys experiencing like the need in order to share these documents, and how are you getting them to the particular parties today? Or can they be done digitally?
I'll start on that one just from our trade contractors,
Okay,
Matt. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we use Building Connected for bid solicitation. So there's a community of trade contractors in that product, which makes it very, very easy to go find the trade contractors we want to extend an offer to bid our work. And then it has tools in it to allow us to distribute documents and collect bid forms, pre-quals, that sort of stuff. That's the most desired route. The caution we have for some of those products is that they're not usable for all work, typically sensitive DoD work. In which case, then we still want to enable our procurement staff to distribute and collect information electronically. We just have to do it in another means, which is earlier I mentioned a secure FTP site. While very legacy in that regard, I mean, FTP sites have been around forever. We can meet compliance requirements with that product that is not achievable right now with some products like Building Connected or a lot of other bid solicitation type tools. So we, either way, we are trying to enable our procurement staff to have a digital workflow when it comes to bid solicitation and review.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit to that. We actually do use the bidding module quite a bit at the city of Shawnee, Kansas. So I've been with the city now for close to 8 years, and they were actually doing online bidding prior to my arrival there using some other software. And then when we moved to EBuilder in 2016, that was actually one of the big things we looked at was, can it do the same things we're doing electronic bidding wise that these older systems we're using can? It does everything we need it to. So we actually utilize a constant contact email group for all of our contractors that we can send out our notice to bids on, and then we actually distribute the login for the bidders portal for that specific project in that notice to bidders, and they can just click that link and log in with their bidders portal username and password, and they get actually onto the invited bidders list for that project. And then we have a shared folder in our folder structure for all of our final bid document shareable items, as well as any addendums that we issue go into that folder too. So.
For us, we've been utilizing BidX and BidExpress for all of our different procurement requests for quite a number of years. When it comes to the bidding module, we're looking at possibly utilizing that to accept proposals from selected designers in order to help facilitate the creation of our contracts with designers. So we're looking to kind of use the bidding module for purposes not necessarily intended for, however, can utilize to get us to a different means, to get us to a contract creation. So that was a fun thing we've kind of figured out how to do with our implementation team a number of years back. We just haven't been able to implement it yet, but that's on the horizon.
We actually do use that portion. We have the ability to award the contract to the low bidder and actually initiate the purchase order contract process right from their submitted bid. So that's been a very useful tool.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's going to be kind of a two-part question that I'll pose, and you can choose to answer one of them or both of them, or whichever you wish. So do you guys think that the current situation will help organizations that are still having to share paper and move towards digital? And what recommendation do you have to those that have not invested in the solution that helps provide electronic processes, not necessarily just particular to bidding, but any of them?
I think for us, it's going to be not a matter of moving towards digital. It's more of the acceptance. I think the acceptance factor of it being basically something we're trying to prove right now. I mean, If you had mentioned to me 2 months ago that I would be working from home with a lot of my coworkers because of what's going on, I probably would, not because of what's going on, but just working from home, period, I would have left. I mean, the concept of that happening is, it's unrealistic. So I think the acceptance level, people are seeing that work is being productive. We are being efficient. We're getting a lot of things done. I think that moving everything towards digital is just going to help the adoption and acceptance factor much more so than anything else. And if you're not already doing something that's in a digital means, I don't think you understand the cost benefit that's really there. You're having to spend more money on an overhead of hard product, paper product, the man-hour times that you lose with trying to send something to someone to something to someone else. You lose a lot of that. So there's a lot of true soft benefit to not having those hard costs involved with being digital.
Yeah, you're not having to keep a ledger of who you've sent plans to. You're not having to pay a plan room to send out your plans for you. You're not having to, there's a lot of automation in the electronic process for bidding that's very useful, that I call the dark ages of paper bidding that I've heard stories of, but we haven't actually done since I've been with the city. So
Lockbox.
Yeah, I think we've had a forced paradigm shift put upon us right now, and folks that might have been hesitant or resistant to adopting new digital workflows. I hope coming out of this, we'll see that it actually works. I'm certain there's probably been a lot of workarounds put in place, and the recommendation there would be just take what you learn from those workarounds and make those scalable solutions after we get through this. Don't just go back to the way it used to be. Take what you were forced to go put in place and now scale that appropriately to your company and to your business. And a few other just things to be mindful of as we start to move back to hopefully a normal state here, not too far in the future, and you're starting to scale those solutions. Be mindful of security, both now, even with those workarounds, and going forward. And when you start digitizing your content and it is now accessible to the web, it should be scary. Don't let that scare you away. There's all kinds of wonderful security tools available to protect your content, but you need to be smart about it. You need to ask people the right questions, ask the right people the right questions to help guide you through that process, so you're not exposing your business's information or your customer's information or whose project's information unwittingly to potential attackers. So security is a big component of it. And make sure you get the team together. We've talked a lot on this call so far about evaluating your current workflows, your processes, challenging those, always asking why. Put together a committee or a work team that can go focus on these solutions and ask those hard questions, report back to whoever it is that is your governing body in your organization to go get approval, and then set some real goals and some ways to measure your success on scaling that beyond a workaround during this pandemic, but to an enterprise solution going forward, so that you can feel confident in the outcomes that you were trying to achieve and you met those.
Dan, got a question?
I have literally probably 40 questions, but we don't have time to go through all of them. So I wanted to,
lightning round.
So I'll collapse a whole bunch of them into around the bidding topic you all just kicked around, which is one of them is that how are you dealing with any getting people together? So when people come into a plan room, and clearly you can't do that physically. So what technologies are you leveraging to do meetings for pre-bid conferences, such as water, wastewater systems, that could be 10 to 11 miles or more, and around, so just if you talk a little bit more about how you're dealing with the things that used to be done physically bidding.
I can start. So internally, actually a year or two ago, it was determined by our legal staff that doing the online bidding process and whatnot, we don't actually have to do a public bid opening. Since everything's available to the bidders electronically once we press the bid tabulation button. We really don't do a public open process now. We give them the recap sheet after the bid's actually open, but as far as internally to getting together to do that bid opening, we utilize Microsoft Teams and the Microsoft Office suite basically to do all of our internal collaboration, a lot of our internal collaboration. So.
Yeah, as mentioned before, we've seen a 10x increase in just online conferencing and using these types of solutions that we're using today to help facilitate still getting people together, albeit virtually.
Yeah, same thing. With us, it's just BidX instead of something else.
Got it. So what I thought I'd do now is just start at the top of the list. I tagged about a half a dozen, which is, I don't even think we'll have time for that. And then the rest of the questions, for those that ask questions that we're not going to be able to get to, we'll commit to getting answers to those questions offline and then resharing those back out. That's part of the reason why it'll take a couple days to get the webinar done, is we'll include those in the recording. So, okay, so the next question has to do with, have you seen an impact on the amount of training requests specifically for your external users? So I'll start with you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have that many external users, but we have had some requests for training. Prior to this, actually 6 months ago or more, we did some cut sheet kind of walkthroughs of all of our processes. So those are available to all of our end users. Obviously, they can email me. I'm our main EBuilder admin for the city, so I'm available. Other than that, yeah, they're coming in for sure, though.
Scott?
We've been doing a lot more of accepting a walkthrough video style training. We've had a lot of processes already with the training video and training documents for a couple of years now. Now it's just, as we're trying to move forward and move faster, the concept of walkthrough video seems to be much more apparent. And sorry guys, I've been kind of stealing your guys' videos and putting them up in our site for EBuilder. So I've been doing the same with Bluebeam, so you're not the only ones. But I've been doing that to make sure that we have a whole, basically a training project within the system that every user has an access to, that has all of our training, good documents, our guidance videos, anything that could be an additional resource to a user. So we haven't had any real new additions, but we've had a lot more users coming to the system now. So the every month I keep a record of how many people will use the system. It's gone up by a noticeable amount of percentage points this past month. I will say that.
Jeremy?
Same here, Dan. We've utilized our support desk for a number of years to assist wherever needed with our partners. Our job site staff also do a tremendous job of just providing kind of hands-on 101 training, particularly as the workflows apply to those particular projects, and then utilizing vendor provided training videos, that sort of stuff.
Got it. And then one of the comments, the last comments that came in, and Scott, you alluded to it, there are an extensive number of training videos available both for EBuilder Enterprise as well as Project Site. So we'd encourage you to make use of them. We don't make them because we like to hear our own voices. So absolutely, don't apologize, Scott. They're there for you guys to repurpose as much as you can.
We had a little issue in which we're not allowed to stream YouTube at work.
Yep.
So I just kind of found its own way of getting the video itself and repurposing to put it out for other people.
Awesome. So I know we're near the end of our time. So the last question, and it was a question asked, it was, why did you select EBuilder for our owners or Project Site for Jeremy on the contractor side? Why that over the other choices that are out in the marketplace? So Scott, since you finished, I'll start with you and work my way back around.
Sure. When it came to looking through our actual origination for all this started trying to find an electronic document management system. And then as we started looking at a lot of different companies, it our need of, we had a project reporting system, so we kind of morphed into, we need something for documents, we need something for reporting. Let's see what's out there to cover us both. And as that list became dramatically shorter at that time, and EBuilder really just, it checked all the boxes. We needed something to do automatic workflow. We need something that could do a document library setup. We need something that could do communication within the system. We knew we wanted to do things like GIS. We wanted to be able to have a lot of plan review. So we shortlisted to about 3 different companies, and for us, EBuilder scored the highest. And having worked with the system now for what's going on 5 years, I'm still very happy with our decision in doing that. I haven't had a question about it. Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, same as Scott. I actually wasn't involved in the selection. That was years ago, and I've since moved on to different positions in the city. But back then, we were looking for a electronic process kind of module to get rid of some of our paper processes. And also, we wanted to do electronic bidding because we were kind of getting dissatisfied with our current system that we were doing electronic bidding in. So those were kind of the 2 big ones we were looking at. And then the document management came in, and we were like, wow, that definitely helped a lot, because we had folder structures with all different sorts of file names and file types, and having the document management system as part of EBuilder, everything's in there with individual projects and specific file names and everything like it should be. When future people are trying to look at these projects, they know where to look, they know where everything is. So it's definitely helpful in those regards. But yeah, I think we sent an RFP, and we got probably 3 or 4 responses, and yeah, like Scott, we graded them, and EBuilder was the top grade. So,
How about you, Jeremy, with Project Site?
We began our digital transformation on Prolog like 20 years ago, and it was time to modernize the software solution. So we already kind of knew we wanted in terms of a project management solution and digital workflows. It was really about selecting a product, and we looked at a number of products in the marketplace today. As I mentioned earlier, we formed a stakeholder group, a committee, to go thoroughly evaluate the options that were out there. And simply put, Project Site just met our business needs the closest. So it made sense to go with Project Site.
We want to thank the panelists very, very much for sharing their time, their experience, and their knowledge with everybody. It's really greatly appreciated.